And we are back with more thoughts and players. We are going to move into our favorite segment, your favorite segment. Was it worth it? And for Was It Worth It, we are going to discuss Ghost of Tsushima. So, Corey, you've got a bit more hours in this than I do. So what's your impressions? How are you feeling about this game?
All right, so the thing is, we haven't actually beaten the game yet, but I feel pretty confident in giving it a was it or wasn't it worth it yet, because the first off, Ghost of Tsushima is a third-person open-world action game made by Sucker Punch. And like I said, it's an open-world game. So you have this gigantic map. You have icons all over the map. You have a busy HUD. You have a little mini-map that takes up space. You have boring combat. Actually, you don't have any of that. Ghost of Tsushima, I think, breaks the mold for open-world games. It takes away that mini-map. It takes away the HUD, and it gives it a super minimalist approach to everything it does in the game, which I think works in its favor just huge. What do you think about that, Jeremy?
I do. You don't get the anxiety of a Ubisoft mini map or a Witcher or something like that, where there's so much stuff on the map you have to do, and you're constantly being reminded.
It's so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about this is it just kind of lets you be free to kind of explore the world. You're not worried about what your next marker is. And speaking of that, they don't even have markers in the game. The game is you're kind of directed by the wind, which when you go to a place, it can be very subtle. It's just the leaves blowing in, which I got to say about the leaves look amazing. The flora in this game it's flora, right?
Yeah.
I had to go over this. Not fauna, flora. Okay, the flora in this game is amazing. There's leaves everywhere. There's tall grass. There's flowers, everything. The wind is constantly going, and it's all blowing in the wind. And that's what directs you to your next waypoint, the wind. Like I said, it can go very subtle to where it doesn't really affect you, or with a flick of the touchpad, which they actually use the touchpad decently in this game, You can get a big gust of wind to kind of show you where you got to go, which is awesome. Yeah, speaking of the world, I would say that at points in this game, the game looks as beautiful as any game I've ever seen, without a doubt. Now, the entirety of the game, the graphics look really good, but there's some points in there where the angle of the camera, the characters and where they're standing, the colors, it makes it look like, this is kind of lame, but it kind of makes it look like a painting. The colors are super vibrant. Just a really beautiful game to look at. The music, you a fan of the music, Jeremy?
Oh, yeah.
It's got a nice touch of subtle when you're kind of just riding along.
Yes.
I don't even know what type of music you would call that. Would you just call it Japanese type music?
I would, yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, but I would say what that does, because when I'll talk about some stuff, I'll also make some comparisons to another supposed PlayStation opus called The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, boy.
But one thing that they both do is they have music in them, but it's not just blaring. There's an intentional quietness to how the music is used in the games that I think is a really nice touch.
And it ramps up when it has to. Once you get into those battles, it really kind of gets your blood going for that quick second. And combat, I wouldn't say the combat is the deepest, but as I've been playing, it's been getting deeper. You have 4 different stances to go through, which are good for some enemies and worse for others. You also have a lot of, standard ninja gadgets that you would do, kunai, smoke bombs, stuff like that. You have a bow and arrow, which is fun to use. And all these things can be upgraded, to perform better. There's a lot of customization in the game, which I really like. I always like kind of playing dress up with my characters. I picked all these flowers so I could buy myself one of those big round hats. And my dude looks awesome. I love it. I dyed his outfit a strong yellow. It was, it's stuff like that makes you enjoy playing those side games or doing the side missions, which, I guess they're not the funnest side missions, but they're pretty fun. You follow a fox, you do a lot of platforming. There's a couple platforming side missions that are pretty fun. Mm-hmm. The characters you meet, I think, are all pretty well acted. I haven't found too many faults. I wouldn't say they're extraordinary in their acting skill, but it gets the job done. Story's okay so far. The main character, Jin, right? That's his name.
Yep.
He's likable.
Sakai.
Jin Sakai. I would say he's likable. At the beginning of the game, he has a strong samurai code, which I would say is to like face your enemy straight on, honorable. And he's kind of really dealing with the fact that you can't win this war he's in like that anymore, which is hard for him. He kind of deals with that in a couple different ways. I'm still trying to be honorable personally, which leads me to the standoff mechanic, which I think is amazing. I love it. So pretty much what you do is when you come across a group of enemies, there's a couple different ways you can play it. You can do stealth, but that's not honorable. He knows that. So I go in there and I say, hey, fellas, I'm here. They all circle around me like a high school fight, and you got to hold triangle, and you wait for your opponent to make the first move. As soon as he starts making the first move, you let go of triangle, you get a free kill, which is cool because it takes that group of 6 people and it cuts it down by 1. Now, as you go through the game, you can get experience points, and you can make it to where you can take out 2 guys at a time. It looks like you can take out 3 guys at a time and maybe even more. So that's a super fun mechanic. And another thing that I think is underrated is this game has forts that you kind of have to clear, which isn't a great gameplay mechanic, but at least in this game, when you get down to the last 2 or 3, you can press a button to call them all out. Hey, I'm here. Come find me. I want to fight you. So, what else is there to say? Jeremy, you got a couple points here?
Yeah, I would say, I've been thoroughly enjoying my time in it. I find Jin Sakai to be so far pretty interesting character. I really enjoy and respect how the game. Sucker Punch could have took the game in a different direction. They decided to go in the samurai direction, and I very much appreciate that because it very much informs a lot of the things that your character is going through in the world. One of the things you mentioned that I think is something this game does well that a lot more games need to do is the customization. It has a lot of really cool, interesting customization options, but they don't really mean anything unless the world and the character make them mean something. So you mentioned when you picked all those flowers to get that hat. Was that the straw hat?
Yeah, the painted straw hat, I think.
Yeah. So you learned very early on in the game that there is this group of people called the Straw Hat Ronin, which are basically a group of leaderless or domoless samurai. They're samurai without a leader, without a clan. But they are respected, venerable warriors. So when you're able to make something, this straw hat, it's not just some stupid hat that you can wear. This hat has meaning within the world, and therefore meaning to your character, and therefore meaning to you as a player. I think the game does that in a lot of different ways, with your weapons that you're upgrading, like the bow. This bow was given to you by, I think it's Lord, or is it Sensei Ishikawa, I believe, gives you the bow, and he got it from Lord Sagai or something like that. And it's supposed to be a bow that was rumored to have sunk a ship in a battle or something like that.
Right.
So it gives you all this context and importance with these weapons and these items. So when you're working with them, customizing them and using them, they just hold more importance to you as a player innately because the world tells you it's important. And I think that's a good gameplay mechanic when you want to have these customization options that aren't. It's not just good to have them where you can personalize them, but they hold some kind of presence in the world. So I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Just the game's fun. And I think that's kind of loses, a lot of open world games lose that kind of just fun factor. You talked about Red Dead Redemption. I'm not a fan of that game because it takes itself so seriously. I almost feel like it forgets to be a game sometimes.
Yeah.
And with Ghost, I never feel that way. I told you a couple days ago, one of the things I love is when I'm riding on my horse and I see materials on the ground, I don't have to stop my horse, slowly get off, go over to it, pick it up. I'm riding at 30 miles an hour and I'm grabbing it as I'm going. It's a constant, this is a fun game, and the story takes itself very seriously, but it is a game,
Yeah.
And I think they just struck a good balance. And, I'm not a big open world fan, but I don't know. With all that thing off the HUD and you kind of just going about and following the wind, it just feels like it's not, like you said, you don't feel like you're pressured to do any one thing of clearing out this area because there's so many markers on it. They just did a really good job overall in this game.
Yeah. Even some things that are basically tutorial kind of items. So I don't know if you did the thing with the bamboo cutting stand.
Yeah.
So that's not something that I got directed to. I just found that guy while I was walking around the town.
Yep, me too.
And he showed me that. And the same with the hot springs that were healing. Did you go to those?
Yep.
It's the same thing. I'm just walking around and this lady says, "Oh, hey, Lord Sakai, you might want to heal in these hot springs." And I'm like, "Cool." And you do the hot springs thing. By the way, solid ass on this guy. All right. You go into the hot springs and they don't show you anything from the front, but you get a nice little glimpse from the back when he jumps in this water. Solid derriere in this dude. So
I was also going to say about like the side games. They have the shoot, what's the poem called? 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. Haiku. Yes. Have you done any of the haikus yet?
I have not done the haikus yet.
Okay, so same thing. I kind of walked across a guy, wasn't pointed that way. It was a discovery I made. He's like, "Hey, man, you should relax. Make a haiku." So you sit down and you kind of point your cursor at one of the things and you'll make a haiku. And it sounds kind of nice. They reward you with a headband that actually has the poem that you made. Now, you're not writing the words, but they give you like prompts. So, and you kind of wear that headband with pride. Like you were saying, these items kind of give themselves more meaning than other games where you come across a sword on the ground, pick it up. Oh, this has better stats than the other sword. Because you can't pick up any other weapons and your weapons do get stronger, but you keep those same tools the entire game.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
so it's
one of the most important things to a samurai is his blade. So
right.
In the Sakai clan, sword is supposed to be one of the sharpest swords in Legend, according to this game. So
okay.
Yeah,
Do you think this does justice to the samurai lore, as far as you know?
I mean, I feel like it does. I know there's the whole cultural perspectives of everything always gets muddied, especially I know Sucker Punch is technically a Western studio. They're doing a game that's mostly about Eastern culture and philosophy. And so some people are like, I don't get it. I think it does it justice for what it is, for the story it's trying to tell in the game that it's in. A lot of the controversy I've heard around it is kind of similar to The Last Samurai, that movie with Tom Cruise, which a lot of people had, to think of, like, why is this is messed up. I heard the joke all the time. This is messed up. How is The Last Samurai a white guy? And the whole theme of the movie is that the samurai code is not locked to a race or an ethnicity. Right. It is something that is beyond that. Is greater than that. Okay. So I feel like those people didn't get the actual message of the whole movie. And that can kind of be the same way with the criticism and that end in this game. I think the culture, what it does, how truthful it is in capturing the Mongols, I don't know. It seems like a lot of Asians aren't that big on the Mongols. They don't like them that much, and I think that's because they were going around killing them. So right. I totally understand. I think I'm totally fine with it. I'm actually happy when me playing this game gives me Sleeping Dogs vibes. I'm glad that I'm in a different culture that explores that culture with some kind of respect, but tries to immerse me in it and does so in a way that doesn't make it completely foreign. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Two other small things I want to point out. The Kurosawa mode, which is where the screen goes. It's based off a director, right? Akira Kurosawa?
Yes.
Okay.
Akira Kurosawa.
Okay, the screen goes kind of like grainy and it's black and white. Cool that they added, and I think there's Japanese voiceover as well. Japanese, yeah. It's cool that they added it. You were saying a couple days ago that the game's kind of too beautiful to put that on.
Yeah, for that mode, as far as the black and white, I get it. I understand it. It's an homage to him as a filmmaker. In fact, a lot of how they decide to tell the story is an homage to him. There's like certain instances where certain things happen in the game and they're flashbacks to when he was younger and how he learned these lessons or these principles. So the way they tell the story from a narrative standpoint is an homage to Kurosawa.
Oh, okay.
But that mode specifically is an homage to his black and white films that he used to shoot and different stuff like that. But like, I said before, like you were saying earlier, at sometimes it's the most beautiful game you've ever played. So playing it in black and white You see
kind
the
of does it a
diversity,
disservice.
yeah, of the red plants, of the white plants, of the leaves and stuff. It does it a bit of a disservice from that standpoint. But it's an interesting mode.
Yeah, for sure. And like, shout out to the Golden Forest. I don't know if you've been to that area. That area looks beautiful with all the yellow leaves everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing I wanted to point out is, have you done any of the photo mode? I don't know if you're a big photo mode fan at all.
Haven't done it.
It's surprisingly really good.
Oh, okay.
I've taken a few photos off it. You know, you can line up. There's a lot of filters, a lot of things you can change. So if you're a fan of that, great photo mode. Like I said, overall, I'm really liking the game. We usually don't do a was it worth it for a game we haven't beat, but I think we both feel pretty confident. I'll speak for myself. I think it's worth it. And if you're at all interested in an open world third person action game, you should get this one because it's really well made.
I am in total lockstep. Sucker Punch once again delivers on top of the infamous franchise that they're most known for. This is a was it worth it for me. It is. I think I was telling you before, I see this as being my last game purchase for my PlayStation 4 and couldn't be happier with it. So I definitely believe this game is worth it.
Yeah, ends the PS4 on high note, I would say.
It's a swan song to the PS4. It's a great way to end it. And
it would be nice if they do an update for PS5 to see how much even better it can look.
I think they will.
If it's like I think that'll look even more.
I think they will. It was like I was telling you before. It was so hard to track a copy of this game down. Yeah. People are buying this game,
right?
So I have absolutely no doubt that they're going to make it where it's updated, frame rates or something like that for PS5. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I think it was worth it. Jeremy thinks it was worth it. Good game. Go out and buy it if you can find it.
Yes.